Emma, so my talk is about 15 minutes, and let's hope we'll have 4 to 5 minutes for discussion. Right, so I was especially interested in the relation between artificial intelligence and the pursuit of the common good. In this regard, instead of just asking or demonstrating how AI can contribute towards the common good, I suggest there is a prior question to be asked. Do we still know what the common good is since the arrival of AI? Perhaps the arrival of AI invites us to revisit our understanding of what the common good even is. It could be that our understanding of the common good needs to change since the arrival of AI. And let me clarify immediately, when I speak of AI, I now speak at the conceptual level of artificial general intelligence, human level intelligence that's not yet there at the moment. I want to ask, what does this arrival of specifically artificial general intelligence at the human level have in store for us when we think of the common good? And to situate this question, I want to point to the argument made by the well-known AI researcher Stewart Russell in his 2019 book, Human Compatible: Artificial Intelligence and the Problem of Control. So in this book, Russell observes that the achievement of human-level general AI is not far off. However, he argues that there is something fundamentally wrong about the way the achievement of artificial intelligence has been pursued so far. Russell says we've been working with the wrong presupposition in our definition of artificial intelligence. He says this was our definition up to now. Machines are intelligent to the extent that their actions can be expected to achieve their objectives. But according to Russell, this is a dangerous definition, one that could even hold a huge threat for the future of humanity. Because, says Russell, there's a very real danger that artificial intelligence in the future will become super intelligence, and that they will then pursue their objectives to the detriment of the human creators. So it will then not be to the human good. And so he proposes that we change our definition of artificial intelligence to the following. Machines are intelligent to the extent that their actions can be expected to achieve our objectives. Our pursuit of artificial intelligence must, in other words, be guided by the lodestar of the human good. And this is important for my argument. For Russell, the common good is the human common good. So my argument in response to Russell's point is that I do not think we can speak of the common good only as the human common good. As I'll try to show, we could never really do this, but the impossibility is even more pronounced since the arrival on the scene of artificial intelligence and artificial agency. So I think we should rather speak of the common good of the common world, a world made up of humans and rivers and viruses and computer viruses and AIs and plants and memes and. So this is my thesis. The common good is the good of our common world, not only the good of humanity. And in defending this thesis, I follow the work of the French sociologist and philosopher Bruno Latour. And I focus specifically on the scheme that he lays out in his 2004 book, The Politics of Nature. An important point that Latour makes at the beginning of The Politics of Nature is that the modern world is characterized by a series of dichotomies or binary oppositions. The main philosophical opposition is the opposition of nature and culture. We could also speak of the opposition of nature and freedom. On the one hand, in modern thought, nature came to be regarded as some objective reality out there just waiting to be discovered and faithfully described by science. Nature, in other words, simply is what it is. And then over against that, there's a realm of culture, the realm of human subjectivity and freedom. And here, the human dignity lies in our ability to freely decide and to take responsibility for our actions. Now, this dichotomy between nature and culture gave rise to a whole lot of other derivative dichotomies and the interminable struggle to reconcile them. One could think of the opposition between facts and values. Facts are considered to be what is objectively out there, whereas values are our human decisions, conventions. If we accept this facts-values distinction, then we can also say the common world is just the world of facts, and the common good is then the world of our values, where we decide what to be, what should be our good. And then a final dichotomy is the dichotomy between truth and power. Along with Latour, we can speak of a truth politics and a power politics. Truth politics argues on the basis of what it regards as objective truths. And there are many variants of politics based on some kind of objective truth. For instance, Marxism, which says that there is a truth to history, and the truth of history is the history of class struggles. And we should just be, in our political process, be true to this, for instance. But there are also others, for instance, according to Latour, some of the green movement in global politics today. On the other hand, over against truth politics, there's power politics that says, no, there is no objective truth. Power is the only truth, and politics is really the right of the strongest. Now, the important point. According to Latour, all of these dichotomies, these binary oppositions, are untenable. We work with them according to a zero-sum game. As one side increases, so the other side decreases. If we prioritize one side, we neglect the other side. But, says Latour, we cannot do this. They cannot be separated as we've done in modernity. So one of his books says, we have never been modern. Nature and culture are not separate realms. Facts and values cannot be separated so neatly. The common world and the common good cannot be separated so easily, and the same goes for truth politics and power politics. So we need to rethink our conception of the social, so that some kind of objective nature is not on the one side and the human political with the human common good on the other side. So you can already hear the implications of this for Stewart Russell's conception of the human good and of a pure human nature that must be safeguarded. So instead of these dichotomies, Latour proposes an understanding of the common world in which we are fundamentally and enduringly uncertain about who are the citizens of our world, who is sharing this world with us. And this is then also an ethical and a political move. We simply don't know who and what and how many our fellow citizens of the world are. In the light of this, Latour says that we should think of the political process as a kind of a loop that continuously goes round in circles. As one cycle ends, the next one starts up again. In each cycle of the political process, there are two powers at work. There's a power of taking into account, and there's a power of arranging in rank order. Each power of taking in turn is comprised of two activities. The power of taking into account is made up of the activity of being open to possible new entities that might enter our political realm. Just think of the appearance of the novel coronavirus and the huge claim it made to recognition in our public sphere. It's like an entity that we had to recognize. And then the other activity in terms of the power to take into account is the power to close down the political process. The power to arrange in rank order, on the other hand, is also made up of two activities. On the one hand, the activity of consultation, where we are considering the different claims made by candidates, we are hearing them out. And then secondly, there is the power to arrange in rank order. You know, how important in our body politic should a new entity now be? So for instance, should we give priority to the coronavirus death toll, or should we give priority to the economic situation? And so the hierarchy is that then sort of the third element of the cycle, and this gets stabilized again in the fourth before the cycle starts up again. Okay, so this is a very, very brief sketch now of Latour's cycle of the body politic, and let's apply this now to AI. AI is now a candidate to become part of our common world. I think following Latour, I firstly want to say we should extend a fundamental uncertainty about AI as well. Are AIs independent agents or not? We simply don't know. Well, to some extent, we also don't know if humans are completely independent agents. We've just heard that there are patients and agents. So there's an element of patiency and agency also in humans. The same perhaps with AI. So let us grant AI this uncertainty, and then let's go through the cycle of the political process. The first activity is that we should be open to AI. And I think we're already open to their candidacy to become part of our common world. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had this conference. And then the second activity of considering AI's candidacy in our common world would be to hear them out and evaluate their claims. And this is also already what we are doing at the moment. Well, otherwise we would not have had this conference, hey? And then the third imperative here is the power, part of the power to arrange in rank order is now to fit AI into the hierarchy of importance in the political process. In this case as well, it cannot be all or nothing. Either deny general AI a place in the hierarchy or capitulate and allow AI to pursue its own interests unchecked. Shouldn't be all or nothing. There must be an ongoing process of negotiations and of keeping in mind the unique contributions that AI can perhaps bring, but also that the human and other actors can bring. Finally, according to Latour, the political process should be stabilized, at least provisionally, until the next cycle of the process starts up again. And in this regard, stabilizing powers we can think of as legislation, various protocols and industry standards that must be in place with regard to AI in its present form. And then when artificial general intelligence arrive on the scene, well, we will also have to revisit all of that. So in the case of this last imperative now to stabilize and in a way make sure that the body politic can actually function, Russell now is of course worried that this stabilization will be too little too late. He says once a certain boundary is crossed, he says the development of AI will now be out of our human control and it will go ahead with its own goals. In other words, Russell is worried that AI may become so powerful that it will take over the whole political process, and the other actants in this process will be very, very, stripped of all power. In this regard, one can think of this book by Dave Eggers, The Circle, where he discusses hypothetically how such a very strong AI might look. Now, in response to this worry, Latour would, of course, insist that the political process must be continuously disrupted. We must not allow AI to gain this hegemonic status and so to speak, to move to the background so that it manipulates sort of everything from behind the scenes. The political process must be disrupted all the time. Just like all other actants, AI's functioning should be noticed and weighed in the political process. The question, however, remains, what if AI becomes too powerful? And this is indeed where I think Latour's proposal for a political ecology is vulnerable to critique. If the political process is one of negotiation and of garnering support for your interests or of pressing others into service for one's aims, then the interests of the strongest, most convincing will prevail. And in Russell's estimation, there's a very real possibility that AI might emerge as the strongest to the detriment of humans in society. So just to conclude, I think in considering AI's place in Latour's politics of nature, one is then seemingly left with a challenge to steer a middle position between the current oppositions of two unacceptable extremes. On the one hand, a truth politics that assumes that there is a pure human nature and a definite human interest that must be protected against AI must be avoided. We shouldn't go that way. But on the other hand, the alternative that Russell sketches of a naked power politics must also be avoided, because there is a very real possibility that super AI may emerge the most powerful. What is Latour's solution? He says we should not allow the political process to become smoothed over. It must be continually disrupted. And in this case, in the face of perhaps super powerful AI, the disruption will happen because humans must understand what are the unique things that we can bring to the political process. What are the unique aspects that we can bring to the table so that our candidacy as part of the common good must always be recognized. All right, let me stop there. Thank you.